There's a kind of man that women feel drawn to, not because he's rich, not because he's loud, and definitely not because he's trying. It's because he moves differently. And if you stay until the end of this video, you'll learn 7 lessons that turn you into that man. Let's begin. Lesson 1. He speaks less, says more. Most men feel the need to talk a lot, to prove something, to sound interesting, to get noticed. They fill every silence with words, thinking that more talking means more value. But often all it does is reveal insecurity. It's like they're afraid of being overlooked, so they keep performing, hoping to win approval with noise. The Stoic man is different. He doesn't talk just to be heard. He speaks when it matters. And when he does, people listen. Not because he's loud, but because his words carry weight. He chooses them carefully. He doesn't explain things 10 times. He doesn't interrupt. He's not in a rush. His silence isn't awkward. It's powerful. Women feel that. They notice the man who doesn't need to dominate the conversation, who can sit in silence and still feel confident. That kind of presence is rare. It's not passive, it's calm. It says, I'm comfortable in who I am. I don't need to impress you to prove it. And here's the truth most men miss. When you speak less, each word matters more. You show control, you show depth, and without even trying, you draw people in. Not because you're performing, but because your energy speaks before your mouth does. Because at the end of the day, the loudest man isn't the strongest. The man who speaks with quiet certainty, he's the one they remember. Lesson 2, he has boundaries like brick walls. A Stoic man knows who he is, and because of that, he knows what he will and won't allow. He doesn't open himself up to everyone. He doesn't bend just to keep someone around. His time, energy, and peace are valuable, and he protects them with clear, quiet strength. He doesn't chase after people who are unsure about him. He doesn't beg for love or attention, and he never explains himself just to be accepted. If someone crosses a line, plays games, or makes him feel small, he doesn't argue. He doesn't make a scene. He simply steps back, not to punish, not to manipulate, but because he refuses to live in places that don't feel right. And that stillness, that quiet exit, it makes an impact. It says, I don't need this to feel whole. That's when people, especially women, start to notice. They wonder, why didn't he fight for me? Why did he walk away so easily? Not out of ego, but out of curiosity. Because real self-respect is rare. And that kind of man, the one who doesn't force, doesn't cling, and doesn't settle, he leaves a mark, not by raising his voice, but by raising his standards. Lesson 3, he turns emotion into control. A Stoic man feels everything, just like anyone else. He gets angry, sad, disappointed, even scared. But the difference is he doesn't let those emotions control his actions. He doesn't yell when he's mad. He doesn't shut down when he feels hurt. And he doesn't act out just to get attention or comfort. Instead, he takes a breath, steps back, and thinks before reacting. When something goes wrong, he stays calm. When someone insults him, he doesn't bite back. He knows that emotions are real, but they don't have to run the show. He lets the feelings pass through him without letting them take over. That calm presence, especially in tough moments, makes people feel safe around him. It tells women, this man is solid. I can trust him not to break under pressure. And here's what most men don't realize. Being calm doesn't make you cold. It doesn't mean hiding your feelings. It means you feel them, understand them, and choose how to respond. That's real strength. And that's what makes a Stoic man unforgettable. He doesn't react to the world. He moves through it with steady hands and a clear mind. And when a woman sees that, she knows she's not just meeting a man, she's meeting a force. Lesson 4, he doesn't perform, he reflects. Most men, whether they realize it or not, are performing. The moment they sit across from a woman they're attracted to, they switch into prove mode. They talk about their job titles, their income, their gym routine, their travel plans. They name drop, show off, and throw out compliments like lines from a script. It's not always on purpose. A lot of it is fear. Fear of not being enough. Fear of being invisible. So they perform, hoping she'll see their value. But here's the truth. Performance creates distance. It says, look at me, instead of, I see you. And that disconnect is what turns something potentially deep into something forgettable. Women might smile. They might even respond politely. But deep down, they're not feeling it because they don't feel seen. A Stoic man isn't caught in that trap. He doesn't need to put on a show because he already knows who he is. He doesn't need to convince her of his worth. He simply lives it. His value speaks through his energy, not his words. He doesn't brag. He doesn't try to lead the conversation with flash. Instead, he leads with presence. When she talks, he actually listens, not just to the words, but to the meaning behind them. He notices her mood. He watches how her eyes shift, how her voice changes, how she pauses. He's not rushing to respond with something smart. He's not waiting for his moment to one-up her story. He's not there to win. He's there to connect. And that's what makes all the difference. When he speaks slowly and with purpose. He might ask a question that cuts right to the heart of what she's saying. He might repeat something she said, just to show her that it landed. He doesn't fix her problems. He doesn't give advice unless she asks. He just holds space. That space, free of judgment, free of pressure, is where real trust begins to grow. Women live in a world where they're constantly being sold to, by brands, by media, by men. Everything is about trying to get their attention, impress them, persuade them. So when they meet someone who isn't trying to sell them anything, who's just there, it feels like a breath of fresh air. She can relax, she can open up, she can be herself, because he's not performing, he's reflecting. And in that reflection, she sees herself more clearly too. That's what makes the Stoic man unforgettable. It's not the flash, the lines, or the muscles. It's the calm, the honesty, the rare ability to just be, and to fully see her without needing to be seen in return. In a world full of noise, he becomes the quiet moment she remembers. Lesson 5. He can walk away without looking back. Most men are terrified of walking away, even when the relationship feels unbalanced, even when they're not being treated with respect, even when they feel ignored, manipulated, or like they're slowly losing themselves. They stay. They hold on tighter, hoping that something will change, that if they just do more, say more, give more, she'll finally see their worth. But here's what they don't realize. Every time they stay in a situation that goes against their values, they trade a piece of their dignity for temporary comfort. They tell themselves they're being patient or loyal, but deep down, they're afraid. Afraid of being alone, afraid of starting over, afraid of not finding someone else. So they stay silent when something bothers them. They make excuses for her behavior. They keep proving themselves to someone who's not even trying to meet them halfway. The Stoic man moves differently. He values peace over approval. He would rather walk alone than stay somewhere that disturbs his inner calm. He doesn't need to win an argument to prove his point. He doesn't stay in a conversation just to be right. He doesn't raise his voice, and he doesn't plead for understanding. He simply observes, decides, and acts. If the energy feels wrong, he steps away, not to cause pain, but to protect his own. And here's the part that surprises most people. It's not done with anger. It's done with stillness. He's not storming out. He's not making a scene. He's just gone. That kind of quiet exit says more than any speech ever could. It says, I know my worth, and I don't need to convince anyone else of it. When a woman sees that, something in her shifts. She realizes he's not dependent on her attention, her approval, or her presence. He doesn't need to be needed. And ironically, that's exactly what makes him so powerful in her eyes. Most women are used to men clinging, chasing, or cracking under pressure. They're used to being the ones who choose whether things continue. But when a man has the strength to walk away, not out of ego, but out of principle, it changes everything. It makes her pause. It makes her question. It makes her feel. Because walking away without looking back isn't cold. It's clear. It shows emotional strength, discipline, and deep self-respect. It means he's not afraid to lose something that isn't right. He doesn't operate from fear. He operates from standards. And standards are rare. This man doesn't test, threaten, or manipulate. He simply lives by a code, And anyone who doesn't respect that code, no matter how beautiful, charming, or exciting, doesn't get to stay in his world. That's what makes his presence valuable. That's what makes women feel the difference between him and every other man. He doesn't just talk about knowing his worth, he shows it in the most powerful way possible, by walking away and never needing to turn around. Lesson 6. He carries a storm, but lives in stillness. Most people misunderstand what real strength looks like. They think it means being the loudest, the toughest, the most dominant in the room. Some men raise their voices, flex their achievements, or constantly try to prove they're in control. But that kind of noise is usually a cover, a performance, a man trying to look powerful because he doesn't truly feel powerful inside. The Stoic man doesn't need to be loud because he's already solid within. There's a storm inside him, a fire built from everything he's been through, his failures, his victories, his pain, his growth. But that fire doesn't erupt. It guides him. It gives him direction, not destruction. He doesn't unleash it on others to feel in charge. He keeps it contained, steady, sharp. It fuels his purpose without burning his peace. You can sense this kind of man without him saying a word. It's in how he carries himself, not with arrogance, but with ease. He walks into a room and doesn't need to take over. He simply is. His presence is calm, but you can feel the power just beneath the surface. He doesn't shrink to avoid attention, and he doesn't stretch to grab it. He's just grounded, like a mountain, silent, still, and impossible to ignore. And that stillness, it's not laziness or passivity, it's focus, it's restraint, it's years of self-control turned into muscle memory. He's not shaken by little things, he's not rattled by drama. He can listen to an insult without reacting. He can sit through silence without needing to fill it. He's not empty, he's full, just quiet about it. Women notice this instantly, not with their ears, but with their intuition. While other men are trying to impress her, this man does nothing to seek her attention. And yet, he has it. She leans in, not because he asks for it, but because his energy pulls her in. She can feel the depth behind his calm. She senses the storm, not as a threat, but as intensity under control. And in a world full of scattered energy and constant noise, that kind of centered presence is rare. It makes her wonder, who is this man? And here's the deeper truth. It's not just women who notice it. Everyone does. Children feel safe around him. Strangers instinctively respect him. Other men can feel the difference too, not in fear, but in quiet admiration, because this kind of man isn't easily provoked. He doesn't act out of emotion. He doesn't need to be seen to feel whole. He is guided by principles, not impulses. He doesn't get dragged into every conflict. He doesn't waste energy proving his worth. He saves his strength for what actually matters. That's why when he does speak, people stop and listen. And when he does act, it's deliberate, precise, and often unforgettable. This is the kind of strength the Stoics talked about. The kind that stays unmoved in chaos, that chooses stillness over reaction, clarity over ego. A man who lives like this becomes magnetic, not because he tries to be, but because he's mastered the one thing most others can't, himself. And that kind of power, it can't be faked. It can't be taught in a day. But once it's felt, once a woman experiences it, she never forgets it. Because a man who carries a storm, yet walks in stillness, is a man the world quietly watches and deeply respects. Lesson 7. He owns his story. Every man carries a past. Some carry shame, some carry pain, and some carry silence. Life hits us all, through loss, heartbreak, betrayal, failure, and moments we never saw coming. But the difference between a common man and a Stoic man is what they do with that pain. Most try to forget it. They push it down, cover it with distraction, or wrap it in ego. They pretend they're fine when they're not. They joke through their sadness. They chase achievements hoping success will erase what's broken inside. But nothing stays buried forever. Unhealed pain leaks into every part of life, through anger, fear, jealousy, neediness, and emotional reactivity. And the men who never face their story end up controlled by it, even if they don't realize it. They let the past write their future by running from it. A Stoic man doesn't run, he pauses. He looks the pain in the eye. Not because it's easy, but because he knows it's necessary. He sits with it, feels it, learns from it. He accepts what happened to him, and more importantly, what it taught him. He doesn't blame the world, his ex, his parents, or luck. He takes responsibility, not for everything, but for how he responds now. He doesn't heal overnight. There's no rush, no pretending. Just a slow, honest rebuild. Brick by brick, he turns pain into power. He gains wisdom that can't be found in books, patience that can't be faked, strength that doesn't need to be shouted, and when he finally walks forward, he carries his story with him, not as a weight, but as armor. He doesn't lead with his past, but he doesn't hide it either. If it comes up, he speaks about it with calm and clarity, not to impress, not to gain sympathy, but simply to show he's real. And that kind of man, he stands out, because in a world full of performers, he's authentic. He's not afraid to be vulnerable, but he's not defined by vulnerability either. He's secure in who he's become. He doesn't crumble under pressure. He doesn't need constant validation. He's lived through enough to know what actually matters and what doesn't. When a woman meets this kind of man, she feels it instantly, not just with her eyes, but with her intuition. He doesn't just speak differently, he moves differently. There's a calm in him, a steadiness, a depth that feels safe. She doesn't feel like she has to entertain him or guess who he really is. He's already done the work. She can relax, open up, trust. Because this man isn't hiding behind charm or perfection. He's not trying to be what she wants. He is who he is. That rawness, that quiet strength creates something rare, emotional safety, a place where she can be honest too. And that safety, that's what women remember. It's not about having a perfect past, it's about owning your path, your truth, your evolution. When you carry your story with confidence, it no longer weighs you down, it lifts you. A Stoic man doesn't deny what he's been through, he transforms it. And that transformation becomes part of his presence, strong, quiet, and unforgettable. Because the man who has made peace with his past is the one most trusted to build the future. You made it to the end, and that already puts you in a different category than most. Because let's be honest, we live in a world that's addicted to shortcuts. People click away the second something asks them to slow down and reflect. They want fast answers, surface-level solutions, and flashy advice that looks good but doesn't last. But you stayed, not because this was easy to hear, but because you're done settling for who you've been. You're ready to build something deeper, something real. While most are chasing attention, trying to be impressive, trying to be loud, you're learning how to be anchored, to be still in a world that's always rushing, to be solid in a world that's always shifting, to be the kind of man who doesn't just attract others, but inspires them by how he carries himself. Because true power isn't about how many people notice you, it's about how many people remember you. Not for what you said, but for how you made them feel. And that kind of presence, calm, grounded, unshakable, doesn't come from pretending. It comes from doing the inner work, from facing your flaws without shame, from letting go of needing approval, from choosing peace over noise, from building yourself into someone who doesn't flinch, doesn't chase, and doesn't fold. So now you have a choice. You can go back to what's familiar, chasing, performing, hoping, or you can step forward and become the man this world rarely sees but deeply respects. Not the loudest man in the room, not the toughest guy in the gym, but the one who's rooted in truth, who walks with quiet confidence, who doesn't need attention because he carries presence. If that's who you're becoming, then subscribe, not for tricks, not for hype, but for grounded, clear, hard-earned wisdom. Because this isn't about putting on a show. This is about rebuilding your foundation. And when you do that, the right people, the right relationships, the right opportunities will find you. Not because you chase them, but because your energy pulled them in. So until next time, Stay still, stay grounded, stay stoic. And if you're ready to go deeper into the part of this journey I can't share with the world, click the link below. The inner circle is open. Inside, we break down the quiet truths most men never learn. We go into the psychology, the emotional discipline, the attraction dynamics that separate the average from the unforgettable. This space isn't for everyone, but if you're done pretending, if you're done chasing, if you're ready to master yourself from the inside out, then welcome. This is where the real transformation begins.